Hello CMPL Comic-Con and welcome to my digital art demo. I'm Stewartoons, 2D animator, teaching artist and voice actor, known for work such as Comment Me Bro, an animated short comedy about a dinosaur astronomer who must go to great lengths to save his species from their unknowing extinction. Also One Winter Night, a reimagining of the origin of Santa Claus in which a thief named Satan must travel to the North Pole to revive a piece of roadkill named Donner, all while discovering the true meaning of Christmas along the way. I've worked on a variety of other shorts, which can be found on my YouTube channel, Stewartoons. I got my degree in character and experimental animation from the College for Creative Studies in Detroit, Michigan, and since have devoted my time to all things cartoon-related, specializing in digital art. During this panel, I'll teach you some tips and tricks that I use to turn my sketches into finished pieces, and hopefully you'll be able to apply these tips and tricks to your own work. I'm currently the writer and illustrator of a series called Vamp Scamps, a comedy about a cranky vampire who accidentally becomes the manager of an orphanage full of unruly children. You can find Vamp Scamps on Webtoons or Tapas. The image I'm going to be cleaning up today is a sketch of vamps and a small inquisitive artist named Zip. I've made the sketch available to anyone who'd like to follow along with this tutorial in case you don't have any sketches to practice on. If you have any questions during this panel, feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll be sure to get around to all of them. Alright? Enough blabbering from me, time to hop right into this sketch. The first thing I'm going to do is add a hue and saturation layer over my sketch to make the lines I'm about to draw a little bit easier to see. I like to rotate my drawing as I work on it in order to easily draw lines that would otherwise be difficult to freehand. I'm using a brush tool that I downloaded online that mimics the look of a pencil. You can edit the properties of a brush to look however you like, or otherwise download brushes in order to get the look you're going for. Zooming in and out can also help you determine if your piece is looking good from a distance. Flipping your art is also a helpful tool to use in order to see if you have any errors with the anatomy. Something that looks good in one direction, like Zip's head here, can appear flat when looked at from a mirrored angle. It's very important to break things down into shapes and use construction lines while you're drawing to determine the placement of things. Zip's head can be broken down into a circle and an oval. The funny thing about shapes is you can use them to convey personality. Round shapes are seen as friendly, and sharp shapes and angles, such as the ones used on vamps, are typically seen as more threatening. Just going to use the eraser tool here to get rid of unwanted bits in my drawing. Now that I've flipped him back over, I'm liking the shape of his head a lot more. It doesn't feel as flat. I'm making another line art layer here while I work on vamps. Drawing lines quickly if you're on a tablet tends to give the best results. If you don't like a line you've drawn, feel free to use the undo command as much as you need until you have a line you're satisfied with. Overshooting lines can help you ensure your lines are connected, so use as needed. You can always erase the extra bits later. If you're having trouble with line quality, you can always download plugins like Lazy Nizumi, which have built-in line smoothing effects. I'm going to use it here. Layers can be placed into folders to keep them organized. It's very useful to keep things grouped together. I know I'm pretty far into this image already, but I didn't like the job I was doing on the lines, so I'm making them thicker this time. Don't be afraid to restart when needed, but don't restart so much that you never finish your piece. It helps to name your layers so you know which is which. You can turn the opacity of layers up and down to make them more or less visible as needed. I know vampires are nocturnal, but let's just pretend he needs reading glasses anyway. Changing the color of your line art layer using layer styles is a good way to determine which layer you're editing if you have multiple. Layer styles can be toggled on and off as needed. Alright, just gonna speed through this tiny bit here. Use the Path menu to convert any lines you've drawn with the pen tool into brush strokes. I'm using the pen tool to drop points that will soon turn into straight lines to make our line work precise. I want to make sure the line art in the background is thinner than the lines on the characters so they stand out better. Now that we're done with the line work, it's time to start on the flats. Here we apply one flat color to the characters to separate them from the background, and lock the color art layer's transparent pixels so that when we get around to coloring, we won't color outside the lines. You can use the color picker tool to select colors that are used elsewhere and apply them to your work. Then we can use the fill tool to quickly color in where you click. I'm going to use the wand tool here to quickly select spaces I'd like to color, and then fill them in with the fill tool. You can also use the pencil tool to line the edges of spaces you'd like to color, and then use the fill tool. By using the Expand Selection option, you can widen the selected area so that you paint underneath the line art instead of just at the very edges of it. I'm going to go in and color the background now. You can quickly change colors by pulling up the Hue and Saturation menu with Control U if you're on a Windows or Command U if you're on a Mac. Layer styles can also be used to apply a gradient to the layer you're coloring on. There's also a gradient tool, which I'm going to use to apply a radial gradient behind the fire. To give the illusion that it's emitting light, I'm going to change the blending modes. The blending modes mix the colors on your layers with the layers underneath it. I'm going to use the color overlay effect in layer styles again to tint my characters and give them a nighttime look. When adding lighting to your characters, drawing the lights on another layer with a blending mode applied will make it more convincing. I like to use the blending mode multiply on my shadow layers to make them darker. I'm using the linear gradient tool here to add in another light source, which is very similar to the radial gradient. Instead of making a circular gradient, it creates one in a straight line. pen tool can also be used to make selections instead of strictly to draw lines. In order to make sure the lighting isn't drawn with the same intensity the further away it gets from the light source, I'm going to select the rough lighting we already have and make a new lighting layer. In that lighting layer, I'm going to use the gradient tool within the selection so that the light fades the further it gets from the source. Right here, you'll notice the fill tool didn't work properly to color in my outline. This is because I used the brush tool to make that outline instead of the pencil tool. The brush tool uses anti-aliasing, which means the edges of any line it creates are a bit blurred, making it harder to fill in with the fill tool. That's why I always use the pencil tool for outlines instead. want to give them a cute little wall painting by selecting some new brushes to quickly do the job for me. There we go, now we have a quick landscape with none of the hassle of drawing it from scratch. To make sure this painting in the background isn't too bright, I'm going to press Ctrl U to play with the levels. Levels control how bright the lights are and how dark the darks are. Next, to make this a more convincing painting, I'm going to use a Photoshop filter to give it some texture. This fire is a bit rough, so I'm going to go in and clean it up now. Brush tools can also have their own blending mode so that you don't have to create a new layer every time you'd like to add a blending mode. It's very useful for drawing fire. That fire's starting to look hot. Remember kids, don't play with fire unless you're a welder, chef, firefighter, potter, chemist, pyrotician. Don't play with fire. I've decided I'm going to bring this into Adobe After Effects for some final touches. It's primarily a video editing software, but it has some great filters which can be used on this drawing. Now that I'm in After Effects, I'm going to start adding on some effects. First, I'll be adding a glow to the fire to really make it pop. I'm also going to put in an adjustment layer. It applies all effects that you put on it to the layers underneath it. The first effect I'll put is a noise effect to give it an old cartoon feel. Next, I'll add in a curves layer to affect the overall color of the piece. Think of it like the hue and saturation controls, except you can decide which color you'd like to affect primarily. Right here, I'm only affecting the reds. Next, I'm adding a blur effect to the background to make it seem further in distance. Then I'll use the Hollow Matrix EZ plugin to give it an old television look. After Effects is a very resource-heavy program, so expect it to freeze a lot. I'm adding in a drop shadow to both characters so that they look like they were drawn on an old animation cell. Just gonna go back into Photoshop and clean up some little mistakes here and there, and then import the layers back into After Effects, and we'll have our finished piece. There we go, just need to get rid of these unclosed lines. Also double checking each layer to see which ones I need to fix. Oops, wrong brush. Always make sure you switch back to the one you intend to use. I think I'm pretty happy with this, so I've loaded it back into After Effects, and what do you know? We have a finished piece. So there you have it. We came, we draw, we conquered, and hopefully you learned something along the way. If you'd like to keep up with my work, feel free to check out Stewartoons.com for games, comics, and animation. And if you use my sketch for practice, I'd love to see what you created. You can tag me on social media at Stewartoons. That's all I had for today, so we'll use the remainder of our time for Q&A. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.